Over the course of Backtracking, I have covered many bands who have had lineup changes, and I've also covered a lead single lineup change once or twice, and those ones can often be the most controversial. Today's band is one of those prime examples. Formed in Las Vegas, Nevada in 2004, Escape the Fate have seen label changes, lineup changes, and style changes, with the only remaining member now being drummer Robert Ortiz. Still as shaky as their beginnings are, much like my intro, Escape the Fate have been successful and accredited for bringing the emo/screamo genre to a more mainstream audience. As part of that audience, it's up to me to go over that stuff, better or for worse. It's Backtracking, and this time it's Escape the Fate. Let's face the music. We start with the band's debut album, Dying Is Your Latest Fashion, released in 2006 through Epitaph Records and produced by Ryan Baker and Michael Elvis Basquiat. That's that name again. It's a solid bit of work, but first, the origin story behind it all. So this is the band's first album as a five-piece, consisting of original lead singer Ronnie Radke, lead guitarist Monty Money, rhythm guitarist Omar Espinosa, bassist Max Green, and drummer Robert Ortiz. However, the band started with 6 members, as a keyboardist named Carson Allen performed on the band's first EP titled There's No Sympathy for the Dead. He wrote some bits for Dying Is Your Latest Fashion and even performed on it, but left before the album was finished and is uncredited as a result. Obviously, not long after the album's release, Omar left and Ronnie was imprisoned on charges of manslaughter during a bar brawl, but he came back with a new band in Falling in Reverse, so yay, it all worked out actually. Still, with all the behind-the-scenes fighting and such and the fallout that came after this album's released, I did ultimately enjoy it. I'd already listened to a lot of the songs beforehand, thank you Last FM, and this is the only ETF album that I hadn't listened to in full before doing so for Backtracking, but I was still pleasantly surprised. The arrangement and technicality on this album especially is as staggering as it is heavy, and at the same time, it's a different sound. It's known for containing some of the band's most recognisable songs, and it's a good starting point for any ETF fan, new or old. It's structured and balanced extremely well, with the tracks rarely feeling out of place on the right tone conveyed well enough throughout. And lyrically, it goes over love, family, loss, sadness, and betrayal, and also Halo as in the video game. Yep, the song The Guillotine would be the first of 3 interconnected songs, as well as the only one being more Halo-focused, as I'll go over later. Ronnie performs well, adding a certain emotional weight and flair to things with his signature vocal style, carrying a good range in both his singing and screaming, and backed up well by the production too. Monty and Omar's guitar work is great, with awesome solos, riffs and chugging, fast-paced breakdown work. Max's bass goes deep, sounding good and playing up well, and Robert's drumming hits hard, fast, and is just timed well. And even though it may not count, I'm still going to include Carson Allen. I feel like he does a good job on the keyboard, adding nice layers and putting on a good show of his own. Standout songs include Reverse This Curse, Situations, My Apocalypse, the great closing song In the Day I Left the Womb, and my favourite and Not Good Enough for the Truth in Cliché. Despite the eventual fallout that would follow this album, Dying Is Your Latest Fashion is still pretty much a landmark album in screamo, produced well and performed brilliantly with everything coming in at the right time. So I can definitely recommend it, it's just a really good piece of work. Next we have the band's second album, This War Is Ours. Released in 2008 through Epitaph Records again, but this time produced by John Feldman, this would be the band's first with new and current singer Craig Mabbitt. This is the band's first album to feature a guest singer as Josh Todd of Buckcherry appears on the song 10 Miles Wide, and also this album contains my first Escape the Fate song, In the Flood. But in a weird twist of fate, as much as I like the band's stuff from this album, it wasn't until Not Good Enough from Dying Is Your Latest Fashion that I became more of a fan of the band. I know, I heard their best known singles from their first album after listening to the singles from their second album. It's weird. Anyway, I listened to this album in full, I want to say sometime between their 4th and 5th albums coming out, and it's the only ETF album that I've listened to via CD. Remember those? No you don't, stop lying. I actually listened to a few songs from this album before actually listening to it in full, and even when I listened to it for this episode, I was still once again pleasantly surprised. The band focused on a more rock edge with this one, combining elements of that with the post-hardcore and metalcore styling of their debut. It works quite well and adds more balance, as well as a sense of fun, which I feel like was missing from Dying Is Your Latest Fashion in some places. The band just sound like they're enjoying themselves, which is a good sign since there was much less infighting, manslaughter, and members leaving. Sorry. That sense of fun is brought across well in this album's sound, and it's structured well enough to fit the genres that it combines, with Feldman's effortless eye for production helping things sound great. I fucking love John Feldman, he's a producing genius. The lyrics cover topics like relationships, war, love, and addiction, and also for the title track, or in brackets, The Guillotine Part 2. Whilst it's less Halo focused, it features the chanting from that game that's so iconic now, so that's actually kinda cool. Anyway, Craig's vocals sound great, with a good scream and singing carrying good range of punch. Monty's guitar work rocks with great solos, speedy licks, and nice hammering riffs. Where was I? Max's bass work is more pronounced, adding a good backbone, drive to things with good riffs of his own. And Robert's drumming is good and heavy, hits hard, and just sounds nice and balanced. Just sounds nice. Standout songs include The Flood, You Are So Beautiful, on to the next one, the great closing song in It's Just Me, and my favourite in the title track. Combining stellar production, songwriting, a good genre mix, and a sense of fun, This War Is Ours is just easy to get into and a good start for Escape the Fate fans who never got into the Reggae era. So, once again, I can recommend this one too. Next is the band's self-titled third album, Escape the Fate. Released in 2010, it's the band's only album through DGC and Interscope Records, and the producer for this one is none other than Don Gilmore, so another well-known name in the producing industry of music. It's also the first album that I listened to by the band all the way through when it first came out, so I actually got something right. Go me! Anyway, the album lineup is the same in terms of members, but the sound is a lot different to This War Is Ours. It's a lot heavier and a hell of a lot darker. Despite the mixed to positive reaction that this album got, I quite enjoy it, and it's probably one of my favourite albums of 2010 from what I remember. I should actually do a list thing. Expect that soon. Or not, I don't know. We get a faster pace on this album for the most part, but it's not without its balance and slower moments, and the production is pretty damn good in that regard too. And the darker tone is, well, it actually fits things quite well. Craig's in at his lowest pitches ever, and while the song's titled Lost in Darkness, it's his voice overlapped with 5 different pitches during the verses. That is a piece of production innovation, and it does well to tell the song story of a female friend of Craig's who was raped, but nobody believed that she was. Come to think of it, a lot of the stories in this album are a lot more personal. The Aftermath / The Guilty in Part 3 is about Craig's father returning from the war, and another factor of this album is the assistance of Monty's younger brother Michael, who co-wrote all the songs and was basically an unofficial 5th member by this point. I mean, the dude even performed rhythm guitar parts for both this album and for This War Is Ours, so he's put his work in, even being a live member from time to time. We'll get to that later, though. Anyway, the writing of this album lends to solid structuring and storytelling, adding more elements of sounds and genres while still being a heavy and memorable piece, and just keeps a good pace. Lyrically, it goes over things I just mentioned and is more personal, and also goes over things like addiction, life in Vegas, and love. Craig delivers a great performance, singing with many different pitches to convey the right emotions and having an awesome scream as well. Monty's guitar work is insane with fucking great riffs and technical, beautiful sounding solos. Knox's bass work even just sounds heavy and hard and just puts in a good performance and a good riff of his own. And Robert's drumming hits fast, hard, and adds layers of flair to everything. Standout songs include Massacre, which totally does not sound like Chesley Smile by Bring Me the Horizon, so fuck you to everyone who thinks that. Day of Reckoning, Zombie Dance, Lost in Darkness, and my favourite in the Aftermath, The Guillotine Part 3. Adding amazing production, great performances, a heavier, more serious tone, and trying new things, Escape the Fate self-titled third record is pretty good. I can recommend this one a lot, despite the critics' opinions. So, yeah, I just really like it. We next reached the band's fourth album, Ungrateful. Released in 2013, it was the band's first with their current 11-7 label and has John Feldman, Monty Money, and Trio drummer Brandon Sala on production. It's also, on a technical level, the band's only album as a 5-piece, since Carson Allen was still somewhat vaguely present on Dying Age latest fashion, and this is the band's first and only album to have Monty's younger brother Michael Mooney as rhythm guitarist, and the first to feature TJ Bell, who is the band's bassist for this album. And this album actually gets a really unfair reputation, I feel. Critical reception to this wasn't the best, but I actually really enjoy it. It's a bit of dumb fun, and it's hard to listen to without having a grin on your face. Well, it was for me. Weirdly, despite the surprisingly huge amount of staff on hand for this one, it turned out really well, and some of the co-writers for the songs are notable names, with Patrick Sun from Fall Out Boy helping on the song Picture Perfect, Caleb Sherman of Beartooth and Attack Attack fame co-writing the song Live Fast Die Beautiful, and Joko Taylor, then of the band Man Made Machine and now of the band Dead, helped with the final track and Fire It Up, so that's some good people to have on your side. The album is a good match with the sense of fun from This War Is Ours and the heavier feel of their self-titled third entry. By this point the ETF marketing strategy was established like it was on their third album. Super heavy song first, more balanced song next, then hope that the album does well. It worked for album 3 and it works just as well for album 4. It's structured in a good way, keeping a consistent pace and slams on the brakes when it needs to, but mostly keeping a good heavy and thrashing sound. Lyrically, well, it is a bit dumb in that regard on a couple of songs, but it's not a deal breaker and it does mostly carry a positive message throughout. Blech. Craig's vocals are on point, delivering his lyrics with a good enough flair and a good balance of emotion. The Money Brothers putting on a great double guitar show. What is wrong with me? With awesome riffs, trucks, and solos. TJ's bass work isn't bad for his first go, with a good groove and showmanship to it all. And Rubber's drumming is great too, adding a good structure and heaviness with style and some good fills too. Standout songs include the title track, Picture Perfect, Risk It All, Until We Die, and my favourite, And Forget About Me. Ungrateful may get flack for its lyrics and having too many cooks, but it all works out surprisingly well with great production, performances, and a sense of fun. And it's hard to listen to without grinning like an idiot, and for that reason I can recommend it. It's just going to make you feel happy and good, and you're going to be tapping your toes to it, so. Next is the band's fifth album, Hate Me. Released in 2015 again for 11/7, the producer this time is Howard Benson, and it's the band's shortest album at 38 minutes and 15 seconds. It's also the band's first to feature TJ Bell on rhythm guitar as well as bass, and Kevin Thrasher Gruft as the new lead guitarist, who plays on the bass as well as adding some programming elements too. And goodness me, did I do what it says on the tin for this one. So you remember that marketing strategy I talked about not long ago whilst I was covering Ungrateful? Well, they tried that with this one too, first releasing the super heavy Just a Memory, then the more somber Remember Every Scar, and then another heavy one in Les Events Terribles, or in brackets The Terrible Children. With that good a lineup, I was thinking that this album would be balanced as those song releases were. But nope! If there's one thing that I don't like much when it comes to bad albums, it's when they're decent albums that have the potential to be more but just wasted it. And Hate Me is a good example of that, and its short length does nothing to help it. But if there's one thing I hate more than Hate Me, it's being lied to, and I don't mind my expectations being subverted when it comes to albums, but I came into Hate Me with those expectations way too high after the previous albums were just really good. It's just not balanced right, and there's no sense of fun left. I don't mind a band taking themselves more seriously, but I do mind it when there's not enough heavy stuff to match it, and I especially hate it when the production takes away from that. It's structured decently enough, but it's repetitive at times, and the lyrics are better on this one, sure, but they also have a nasty habit of repetition themselves. That's not even the band's fault, and they can rock being a four-piece, but having TJ and Thrasher do too much at once does nothing to help either of them, especially with this being Thrasher's first appearance. Having said that, the band do still perform well. Craig's vocals still sound good, especially when he sounds like he's actually into it, with good range and amazing screaming. Kevin and TJ's guitar and bass work is also with good scales, wrist styles, and flair, and so on and so forth. And Robert's drumming is strong as always, with good timing, fills, and sweeps. I just wish that the production would let that show through more. Standout songs include Get Up, Get Out, Alive, The Terrible Children, the title track, and my favourite in the intro track, Just a Memory. Hate Me has good potential and good ideas, but the production on Rush Feeling just butchers everything, and having too many people do too much at once just puts a lot of unnecessary strain on things. This album is worth a listen, but really not many more after that, and I can't fully recommend this for any good reason. So, I mean, if you listen to it, you'll hear, like, the things they wanted to do, but you'll feel sad afterwards for realising that they couldn't do those things. So, sorry. And finally, we have the band's sixth album, I Am Human. Released in 2018, 11/7 is once again the label, Howard Benson is once again the producer, and it's the band's longest album at 44 minutes and 34 seconds. There are no lineup changes, but this is the band's first album since This War Is Ours to have a guest vocalist, as Joe Coachella from Dead, remember him, appears on the song Recipe for Disaster. Now, before I heap praise on this album, because I do genuinely like it, I have an odd issue with the closing song titled Let Me Be. Why, you ask? Well, it's this exact same last song on Hate Me, and absolutely nothing is different. There's no changes to production, no changes to the lyrics, or structure, or anything. They literally closed this album with the same song that they did for Hate Me, which is weird because that's a good show of this album's restraint. I feel like things were too crazy and confusing on Hate Me, but this one is a bit more grand and it's a necessary pullback on the reins. In fact, the majority of this album is softer in tone and has a somewhat more positive feel to things. The super heavy tracks don't come in until a bit later on in the album, but it's built up well to that point. It's also odd because the first single released from this album was Empire, which I remember absolutely hating. I like the creepy beat and such to that song, but it suffers from boring body lyrics which repeat themselves, but at the same time it was a smart ploy, basically releasing one mess song, a few good ones, then the album itself will wind up being a pleasant surprise. It's structured carefully enough and doesn't overstep its boundaries anywhere, even adding some pop-punk elements not really heard since their first two albums. Lyrically, it focuses on love, missing people, and accepting who you are, which is maybe the main theme of this album, and actually adds a positive vibe to everything because of that. Craig's vocals have a more emotional tone and delivers message as well, telling some good stories and carrying good range. Kevin and TJ's guitar work is good, being able to show more than just playing along well with some killer solos from Kevin especially. The bass work isn't anything to sneeze at either, with a good groove and riff here and there, although I wish they'd have a fifth member on bass just to make things easier, but that's just me. And Robert's drumming is nice and balanced, adding to the more restrained sound and only going hard when he needs to. Standout songs include Four Letter Word, the title track, Digging My Own Grave, Broken Heart, and my favourite, Recipe for Disaster. Adding a good sense of restraint and focus on more on growing than showing, I Am Human is a positive album and it's what the band needed at the time. I can recommend this one, it's just a good piece that fills out its length and it's good, it's just good. So, let's round them up. Most favourite album is definitely their self-titled third. It's just a heavy, memorable and surprisingly dark piece from the band with some really innovative things going for it. Even if others may not see that, I really enjoy it and I'm just as surprised listening to it for this episode as I was when I first heard the album. Our least favourite album is definitely Hate Me, in case you can guess. It's just a shame to see such potential cut down and wasted, making for an imbalanced, babbling mess of an album. But enough of that. Speaking of babbling messes, join me next time as we head on over to Edmonton, Kentucky, not Canada, to cover Blackstone Cherry. So, I'm going to enjoy doing that one. Thank you for listening. You're awesome. Bye bye.